Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for the brand new David Bowie box set Rock and Roll Star. So this thing is a 6-disc box set that is centered around the classic 1972 album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Lots and lots of cool material on here. I'll break it all down. I'll do an unboxing of this and we'll get into it in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you're gonna stay up to date on everything going on in the world of rock, just like this with the new David Bowie box set that just dropped on June 14th of 2024. So David Bowie is sort of arguably regarded as the most influential musician of the 20th century. The classic album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, which is what this box set is based on, is probably his most famous album and perhaps even the most famous glam rock album of the era, which is of course what the box set is all based on. So we're going to talk about that, but I want to start by talking about this classic album that's now actually 52 years old. It was his fifth studio album, produced by David Bowie and Ken Scott. The band, the Spiders from Mars, classic people in and of themselves. Mick Ronson on guitar, unfortunately passed away in '93. Trevor Bolder on bass, who passed away in 2013. Of course, David Bowie passed away in 2016, leaving Mick Woody Woodmansey, the drummer, as the last surviving member of the band at this point. There are 11 tracks on the original album, but it includes some of his major career-defining hits like Moonage Daydream, the all-time classic Starman, my personal favorite, Hang On to Yourself, and Suffragette City. So I looked this up and I was actually really surprised to find this out here. The certified sales of the album in the US is only gold, meaning 500,000 copies. And I would have thought for such a classic album it'd be a lot bigger. Now, I do want to put a little asterisk next to that and say, sometimes record labels don't always go after the certifications for the albums. Maybe it doesn't mean much to them. Who knows? So it doesn't necessarily mean that the sales aren't much higher for this album. Back in 1972, they weren't tracking album sales yet through the typical way that they do certification now. So who knows what it sold back then. But either way, right now, this album only sits at gold for the US. So kind of crazy in my mind. But I also want to talk a little bit about this album release here for Record Store Day, which just came out on April 20th, called Waiting in the Sky, before the Starman came to Earth. So if you're not familiar with this kind of ties into the box set release and is a very cool thing. If you're a diehard Bowie fan, you probably want to pick a copy of this up. It was a limited edition, LP only, no CD edition of this, 8,000 copies of it worldwide, and it's a reproduction of the provisional album that eventually, of course, would become the Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars album, but it featured an alternate track listing on it and 4 unreleased songs that didn't make the final album. And that's what drew a lot of us Bowie fans in, was for that in and of itself. So those 4 tracks, Round and Round, which is sort of like an old school 1950s classic rock sounding song. We got The Superman, which is a classic sounding Bowie song. It would have actually fit very nicely on the Ziggy Stardust album. Holy Holy, which I think is kind of a dark little poppy number. And then Velvet Goldmine, which is more of a big sounding poppy number. It's a little bit more rock edge to that one that I like. And as I mentioned, in this box set, no CD edition of that, although the album Waiting for the Sky does appear on the Blu-ray, so you can listen to it that way, making it kind of nice. But let's go ahead now and talk about the box set itself. So kind of interesting, there's nowhere on the face of this thing that says David Bowie. Of course, we get this big picture and it's gleaming and reflective and doesn't make it easy for me guys, to be able to show you, but it is kind of a cool thing and has that nice quote on it. I could make a transformation as a rock and roll star on it. We do get the David Bowie name down the side. This is actually showing you the 2 books that are included in here, and David Bowie rock and roll star there. So that information is on it. This is a 6 CD deluxe edition, 5 CDs and 1 Blu-ray. Of course, this is exploring his journey during the recording of the Ziggy Stardust album. It starts in February 1971, and it goes through the whole creation of the album. It goes through the international mania that happened after it. It also includes radio sessions, TV performances, live stuff. So all the way through up to October 1972. And from February 71 to October 1972, you wouldn't think that, that's a very long period of time, but man, they managed to fill up 5 CDs that's in here. 67 tracks appear on this, and 29 of those tracks are unreleased, and it kind of breaks down into things like rehearsals, demos, there's outtakes like those 4 songs that I talked to you about earlier, alternate versions, various types of live things, whether those TV performances, actual live concerts, BBC. Then there's some new mixes that are included in here, 2023 mixes of things and stuff. So all in all, 6 discs. CD1 has early demos, rehearsals. CDs 2 and 3 are titled as The Sounds of the 70s, John Peel. So that's all the BBC type stuff, but 2 CDs worth of that stuff. CD4 has additional outtakes and live versions, of which including those 4 unreleased songs that were only available here on this LP, provisional album that was the Record Store Day release. We do get them standalone on this box set. Again, those titles are Round and Round, The Superman, Holy Holy, and Velvet Goldmine. CD5 then has some more outtakes on it, but it also has those new mixes I was talking about. Then there is the Blu-ray audio. There's no video on it, just audio, but I know a lot of you guys love those Blu-ray audio mixes and things. So you get that. You also get the Waiting for the Sky in its entirety on there. So if you weren't able to get one from Record Store Day and you like to listen to the Blu-ray discs, you do get this. But interestingly, there is no version of the whole album on here. This is 5 CDs of all the surrounding materials that led to this album. So I kind of thought that was cool. Sometimes it gets a little bit too much where you get all these different versions and you keep buying them. And I've got them in box sets. I've got this 2 CD edition of it. I've got a standalone CD, right? So I really don't need another copy of the Ziggy Stardust album. But at the same time, when I'm getting this whole thing, I'm sort of like, why don't I get a new remaster of it? So it's a bit of a catch-22. I'm totally okay with this being an entire box set of stuff that is not the album proper, meaning they don't just include this in here. So it's not duplicating anything that I have, which is very nice. Not to say that there aren't some duplicates possibly to the CD2 that's in here. I don't mean that. I just mean that it is not duplicating the album, meaning I'm not buying, say, for the 5th or 6th time, which at my point in my collecting career of 35 years, I'm getting to the point with lots of albums where I have 5 or more copies because of various ways that it's gotten released. The original that I have, a remaster, and then it starts appearing in box set after box set, and I'm buying those box sets to get something else. So I think we've all been there. I think we all, know about that, and it is nice that that is not happening. So for me, at least, that is one of the positives about this box set, what they chose to do here, which usually does not happen. And I think also why this box set is called Rock and Roll Star and is not listed as a deluxe edition of the album. This does contain 2 books in it. We get a 112-page hardback book and a 36-page reproduction of David's personal journal through the era while he was putting this together. So let's go ahead and take a look at this beautiful thing. So if this goes on my shelf now, it sits like this, which makes this the front. And when this arrived, this informational sheet was on the back side of it, which is a great way to explain everything. I kind of wish this page lived inside here, but you can slide this off and put it inside the book, so that's great. But gives you a breakdown of everything that's in it. Now that covered up the cover of this, the way that it's been promoted. So it arrives like this, and that was the front. And I was very surprised. There was nothing about Bowie on the front of this when I got it. Of course, after I took the cellophane off, I go, oh, right. There's the cover of it where it's been getting promoted. But why would you have covered that up? It should have been the other way around. Plus, this, in my opinion, should be on this face here. So I really don't understand sometimes how they think about these things and what ways they go together. But why is that considered the front and not that? But I'm choosing to show you this because that's how the box has been promoted this whole time. Now, they might consider that the front, meaning if you put this on your wall, this is what's sticking out of it. So this is the front, but I like to protect this stuff. So to me, that is the front, just the single spine, but that's just me. Anyways, let's get into looking at this thing. All in all, hardcover slipcase over those two books that we're talking about that slide out like this, right? So we get the journal here, and I'll show you that in just a second. And then we get the hard cover book. In the hardcover book, we are also getting, I'll just show you this real quick. So there's also this little promotional thing for a new version of the Mick Wall or Mick Rock photo book. But the discs come in here, so we get 2 of the discs up front, and then in the back of this, we get the other 4 discs. So that's all 6 discs. And after we get that, those are nice hard cardboard pages to really hold that in. Little grooves cut out for this. You do have to kind of tilt this forward a little bit, and you want to be careful that you don't actually bend the thin cardboard that it is, but you get individual sleeves for these, and I really like that a lot. Even the discs in here look nice in my opinion. They're the classic old school look of the disc itself, the way that's done in the writing of the name Bowie. I kind of like the way they did that. But the back side of each one has track listing and breakdown and stuff like that. So all in all, pretty cool, and just various versions of him in the promotional shots from back in the day are in here. So I'm not going to pull them all out, but that gives you an idea of it. And then we start to get into what the book itself has inside it. And so it's got lots of great information and memorabilia shots and 7-inch pictures. It's cool, full of dense information from old interviews. It's got song breakdown that's in here, but I just really like all the promotional stuff that's included with this book in here. But it's basically like what I call a coffee table book. If this were a standalone book, this would be sitting out on my coffee table. It's that kind of thing that interests lots of people who would pick it up to look at it just the way that it's done. But kind of however it is that you want to cover the review of this album and get information on it. There's stuff in here, old newspaper clippings. As I said, there's interviews, there's breakdowns, there's history, and just really cool shots. So all in all, it's a very cool book. And then, as I previously showed you, those are all the way in the backside, spine, and this. And then we get, this is kind of cool, you get a reproduction of his journal during the writing of this. That's the backside. It is soft, and it probably was soft covered like that. What I did notice is, I don't think it was ever this big, because when we open it up and we see the size of the handwriting, it is way overscaled for, what I think it would have been. So I think this was a little notebook, maybe something that was like 6 by 10 or, smaller maybe. Definitely not this big. So I'm a little bummed that they blew it up in size and didn't just keep it small. I kind of wish that they would have kept it the regular size, but it's got lyrics, it's got little sketches that are in this thing. So this is one of the things I'm talking about where, like, look how big that text is. It just, he would not have written it that large. It would not need to be, but he's got chords in here, notes. So really, really cool to see what he's coming up with. Stars with Rick Wakeman on piano listed out there. So kind of cool to see all that in here. just whatever it is that he was going with, all the song listings and what it could have been, and song selections, and which ones might have made the album and didn't make the album, and set lists, they would perform live and so forth. So all in all, pretty cool stuff included inside this new David Bowie box set. Bottom line on this thing, I think it's really well thought out, thoroughly compiled overview of David's most famous era. It provides an insight into how it is that the album was developed. And for fans of us that really enjoy the album, it's like you're a fly on the wall. And that's a cool thing after 52 years of enjoying this album, to really kind of get into the guts of this thing, hearing it, provide that insight on how it was developed and the thoughts along the way. Basically, it helps share his vision of how the album came to be. Material-wise, it's definitely something only for diehard Bowie fans. It's not really meant for the casual listener. The material content, which I haven't really spoken about just yet, is good quality stuff. But some of the early rehearsals, there's some hotel room demos that are pretty raw. They all in all sound okay, but they are not meant to be listened to, in my opinion, over and over and over. But once you get past that stuff from the first disc, some of the later stuff that's on here, alternate versions, especially the live material, the BBC and that kind of stuff, is very, very good quality. And you could maybe want to pop that in more and more. But it does take you all the way through, turning on a tape recorder and recording something in a hotel room, to rehearsals in the studio, to demos, to, studio recordings, to live recordings. So you really do get the soup to nuts on this. But I would say, if you're already a fan of David Bowie, the Ziggy Stardust album, you like other stuff, and you're ready to dive deeper, this could be a very cool box set for you. You should certainly check it out and see if you are in the mood and, of course, the market for it. But there you go. David Bowie, Rock and Roll Star, a 6 CD box set that covers the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, the 1972 classic era of Bowie during his glam rock days. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review. Certainly leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts on this. And take care, guys. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.